The ad read's going to be fine, but before we do that, let's say hello to Jason Kiefer.
Pleasure to be here.
Nice one.
Pleasure
nice
to
one.
be here.
And
trying to fix some sound issues, but
before we do get to our first sponsor, let's just give a nice round of applause for our guest, Merril Hoge. And we want to thank him for being here today. And all this is made possible by the great sponsors that we do have, and chief among them is Kerry Wolfangle. When it comes to real estate around Cincinnati or around the world, the two names to know and trust are Comey and Shepherd Realtors and Kerry Wolfangle. Everyone wants a realtor who knows the market, but for Kerry, it is a lot more than that. Her business is built on a relationship of honesty and trust. Kerry Wolfangle has been recognized with many of the highest awards in the industry, and she is the only real estate agent that we recommend. If you or maybe someone you know is interested in buying, selling, moving in, or moving out, contact Kerry Wolfangle, 513-265-3125, or kwolfangle at comey.com. Your road home starts at Wolfangle.
Great job, Dano.
Thank you. Very exciting today. Merril Hoge, how are you?
Well, I've just gotten better. You're done with all the intros, and we're ready to go now.
We're ready to rock and roll with
I
the
understand you guys
podcast.
have a theme here. Popping that beer can is obviously a theme, right?
That's we've done that
That's
since
your-
that's the only, when we decided to do the podcast.
That's when you know you're.
That was
here.
the one rule we had, is that we consume beer during the podcast, and we crack one open, we hold it up to the mic.
I like it.
So that's how that's how we roll.
I love it.
But
that's good.
It was a bad goal at first. I mean,
It's
there
a
was
good-
too much crack and less talk. It was bad. But
Well, sometimes the podcasts get better that way.
But see that
Always
that's,
end up
but
with
that's
don't
something,
remember
definitely
them.
had some
Yeah.
good ones.
but that's something you believe
why
in
you
is,
record it.
is being goal oriented, right? I mean that's a big thing.
Well, you always need a vision. You always need a vision. There's actually something you're aiming for. So I like it.
For anybody, and I don't know how many people other than the Pittsburgh days. God, it pains me to say that the Bear days. But anybody who has ever been told they won't achieve a goal that they have in their life, anybody who has been told they're not smart enough, tall enough, fast enough, whatever your limitation, and has worked hard to overcome that goal, you need to listen to this man, and especially read his first book at 12. I mean, you're going to get into it, which is great, but
Right,
I
yeah.
love the obstacles. I love the little man, and I love being told no. You know, you won't do this.
Yeah. Well, actually, as soon as you say that, it reminds me when I was coming out for the '87 draft. I had everybody has those your evaluations of your draft, and then a little assumption or a synopsis of the player, what kind of player they are. And when I was coming out, there's a guy named Alonzo Highsmith who was the best fullback in the country from Miami. The second best was Roger Vick, fullback out of Texas A&M. And actually, both these guys go in the first round. There would never be a fullback taken in the first round today, just based on how the game. And keep in mind, the Houston Oilers take Alonzo Highsmith, which he was a complete opposite of, because they had the run and shoot there. So what they were doing there didn't even make any sense. But that being said, I remember Alonzo Highsmith's, and I'm paraphrasing, but the synopsis was like, incredible athlete, great speed, great size, blah, blah, blah. And then, Roger Vick was not that far behind. Great size, great speed, great and then it got to me and it said, self-made player. I was like, oh, man. I was like, that's so bad. And I was getting off an exit. I forget when I was driving home because I just got out of class. Got off the exit and I read that. And I was like, oh, wait a minute. There's some value in self-made. Mm-hmm. I mean, that means you can make yourself whatever you want to make it. That was kind of the day that I looked at that differently. I was like, at first I was like, God, that's just terrible to be matched up with people like that. And then you get, he's a safe self-made player, and I'm like, maybe there's some value in that.
You can write your own ship. That's awesome. I mean, that's
said,
the way I take it.
That's actually where Find a Way, the message is about. It's not about me. It's about what people have in them.
Yep.
The hope I find in people, and then what is possible for people. What they truly have. And oftentimes we can put limitations on ourselves because we've allowed other people to put them on us. And we've absorbed that, and we focus on that, and then we follow that. it's the same as if you ignore that and you decide, well, you know what, I am better than that, and I'm going to do A, B, and C, and then you focus on that. Then it's very interesting how you become that. And so that's how I've always thought the mind. I've done a lot of research on the mind. I've done a lot of work on the mind. It isn't just my own experiences. I've went to people who have studied the brain, studied the mind. And the brain is complicated yet simple. So it's complicated from this aspect. You can take the best computer on planet Earth, a supercomputer, and the brain is twice as good as that. You can hold more information than any computer you could think of. Okay, that's how powerful everybody's brain is. That's how much information. Then you think about how simple it is. It's the difference between how you feed it and exercise it is going to be the result. So if you really want to change things, improve on things, accomplish things, then that's what you have to drive every day. And I use the word every day. I actually got that from Walter Payton, which if we get to it, I'll tell that story. But his commitment of being great was every day. It wasn't on Tuesday and it wasn't on Thursday or when it worked for him. It was every day. And that's ultimately what is the difference between people who really evolve and move on. It's the commitment every day. Most people have a commitment or they want it, but when it comes to all of the effort and work it takes to it, you just they start falling away. And so, and there's not a person that's not sitting in here that can't do that. That is truly a pattern and a mindset that is developed, and it can be applied to anything and everything. I've done it my whole life. I have seen it work. I learned it from others. I mean, I mentioned Walter Payton a little bit ago. When he was asked what makes him better than everybody else, that was his secret sauce. He's like, I want it more than they do, every day of the week. Yep. In the off season, when I go run that dirt hill at 7 o'clock in the morning and nobody wants to come with me, I want it more than they do. That Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday.
That dirt hill is huge.
That dirt hill. And then during the season, when there's like 65,000 fans in the stands on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, I want it more than they do. Mm-hmm. He said, now listen, you only see me at 1 o'clock on Sunday, but I want it more than they do there too. And then I heard that as a kid, and I was like, holy cow. I was expecting to hear, well, I have a gene that nobody else has, yep, or I drink all this protein, which I was going to go buy it. And I'm like, wow, that's powerful, just his mindset. We don't have enough time here, but, that comes – I saw that at age 15. When I played for the Chicago Bears, even though he was retired, one of the great experiences there was that Fred Cato was the same athletic trainer there then that was there when I got there. So I could ask Fred Cato to tell me a story about Walter Payton every day. Walter Payton would come around the facility, even though he was retired, because he sat on the Chicago Bears board. So I got to learn a lot about Walter Payton, and there's a lot of layers to him, aside from being a great football player. But there was a teammate of mine who was drafted in 1987, the same year I was drafted, by the Bears, and he wanted to train with him. And so Walter Payton agreed, and he came to that dirt hill. And so as soon as he told me that, I was like, oh my gosh. Like indirectly, that dirt hill had inspired me my entire life. To have done it with him, I'm like, he had my attention. But he shares this story about he shows up, he's excited. I mean, he can't sleep the night before, so he gets there at 6 o'clock in the morning. It's still dark. 7 o'clock shows up. Here comes a red Ferrari, pulls up. Out jumps Walter Payton. Sweatbands are on, headbands on, spatted up. He said, "Merril, sweetest athlete I've ever seen." He said he shook my hand. We talked. We stretched. We're having time of our life. You could talk about a prince of a guy. And then we went over to this dirt hill. This dirt hill is 80 yards up, 40 degrees, sand-based. Now, that can be taxing you if you're going to walk it. And all they're going to do is run up, but as fast as you could go, and then they would walk. They'd rest as they walked down. So in his words, he said, we get to the bottom of that hill. He goes, we run to the top of it. He said, when I get to the top of the hill, he said, I no longer like Walter Payton. He said, I have never been breathing harder. I look down, I can see my heart ripping out of my chest. I can see it bouncing against my chest wall. And I'm breathing so hard, I can't ask the most important question, which I forgot to ask before we ran it. How many are we going to run?
How long are we doing this?
And now this is in his words. This is in his words. He said, I get about halfway down. I finally can breathe normal. I turn. He's not breathing hard. He goes, that was disturbing. But I ask. I go, how many are we running? He said, he turned. He goes, we're doing 10 today. He said, Merril, not the number I was hoping for. He goes, I'm hoping for 4 or 5. He goes, I can't do 10. He gets to the bottom of the hill. He said he starts to head back up. He starts puking. He can't even get to the top. He finished puking. He goes, I walked the bottom of the hill. I kept puking. He goes, I walk over to my car. I get in the car and drive home. Now, in the training room, there's about a half a dozen players, and we're all listening to this story, and everybody's doing what I'm doing. Like, what would you have done? I was thinking, man, I might have puked. I might have had 10. I'm in this process of thinking, like, I wouldn't have left that experience either. I was thinking, why did he leave it? And I'm in the middle of that, and he pierced the air with this. He's like, hey, Merril, that dude, he wants it more than I do. The irony. Like, they were both 5'10", both 205 pounds. They are physically spitting images of one another as far as athletic ability, a mindset. He become the all-time leading rusher in the National Football League, pound for pound, the greatest player to ever play, period.
Absolutely.
I looked at my buddy, and I never forgot. I was like, what more was in there? Because he was a very good player, don't get me wrong. But I was like, what more was in there?
Yeah.
And that was when it kind of came full circle, that mindset. Here's what it does. It gets the most out of your God-given ability. Does it mean you're going to be the greatest like Walter Payton? No, it does not. But I'll tell you what it will do. It'll make you the greatest you can be, and you can have peace with that. And that's ultimately, when I speak, you try to get people to realize that. Get the most out of what your God-given abilities are. Have peace with that. And you can reflect like in the reflection of a mirror by yourself. And I tell people all the time, do it by yourself. I've done this many times. Are you doing your part? Did you do your part? If you say yes to that, have peace with that. I don't care where you end up.
I have a sense that the best coaches recognize that too, that they're going to push the athletes under them. And it's not necessarily that you're going to win a championship every year, but especially in high school and college level, you want the best coaches want the athletes that are working for them to be the best athlete that they can be. And I think the coaches that recognize that are probably the ones that are recognized as the best coaches.
You know, Dan, there's all different layers there. There's different stages. Like I've coached every stage from 8 to 38. Now, when you're 8 years old, this is about I call it, you help them, you teach them about the game. You help them learn about, like everybody goes, oh, you got to win, you got to win. I said, let me tell you this. That is not the most important thing as a kid. The most important thing is about how do you win? Like, why is practice important? Why are details important? Like, if you teach those things, you're going to win. And then when you get to high school, they have a little more knowledge. There's a different level of teaching. College, a little different teaching. When you get to the NFL, that world is about, I am not to motivate you. Like Chuck Noll used to say on Saturday after practice, like, my job's done. I've done my job. You're ready, and I will see you on Sunday. And that's how he approached us. He trained us. He got us ready Monday through Saturday, and then on Sunday it was our job.
I find it amazing, though, just the brief read. And I'm going to, full disclosure, I have not read your book. I've read synopsis of your book.
That's okay.
I'm going to read it, Merril. I'm not kidding. And when I told you, I asked if
threat?
you had.
Are you threatening me right now? Are you threatening me?
Not at all. Not at all. Now, I haven't read it, but I've read the synopsis of it, and I see a little guy over here. You were 12 when you put Find a Way up on the wall.
Yeah.
According to your book. I mean, you realized at that age, was it self-realization, or was it a family or a friend or a coach or somebody else that instilled upon you or in you that mind over matter could persevere and overtake any obstacle in my path?
Well, I tell you this. I always say this. I'm a product of a lot of people. People challenged me, inspired me. I am not smart enough to come up with the things that I've been able to see other people. But at that age, I did always envision. I heard two things when I was a kid. First of all, I heard at a very young age. So somebody asked me what I wanted to do and what I wanted to be. And I was like, wow. I was 8 years old. I was like, I had no idea. But I don't expect 8-year-olds to know what they're doing. But it was the first time I didn't. I was like, wow, I'm going to think about that.
Normally it's firemen.
Yeah, but I said, I'm going to start thinking about that.
Don't be a
so
hater.
That's about, this happens around 1973, and I always have to paint a picture of 73.
Dazed and confused, Matthew McConaughey.
Well, in 1973, the best way to paint the picture is that my dad was a milkman. My dad used to get up at 4:30 in the morning and drive around. Everybody left their empty bottles in a little container outside their porch, and he swapped it out.
Where was your dad a milkman? Because
In
my
Idaho.
dad swears to God, my father's a milkman.
Okay, so
He was 5'9".
Right. So being a milkman does not exist today, but that was a big deal back then.
I was born
but
in 75, man.
I didn't want to be a milkman. Okay, so now another part of 1973, not everybody had televisions. Like, there was no bar like this that had 15 televisions.
Right.
Nobody had television. And if you did, you had, it was a box about yay big, you had an antenna, you had 2 knobs, and you had 3 channels.
And usually some aluminum foil or something over the rabbit ears.
Just for better reception.
Right.
There were no remotes, so you had to make sure whatever channel you were on, you were good with that before you sat on the couch. Unless your parents come in, then you are the remote. and
You are the remote.
Yeah, so you are. So on Sunday, we couldn't have the television on. It was a rule in our home. We just couldn't have the television on Sunday. So I used to like to go to my grandparents' house because they always had television on. I rented my grandparents' house one Sunday. This is shortly after being asked that. And I remember you walked into a landing, took 3 steps, and then you're in the kitchen. And I walked up in the kitchen, and there it was. It was the Green Bay Packers were playing. It's the first time I'd ever saw football on television. And I had been doing it in the backyard, and I was like, oh my gosh, that's what I want to do. I know what I want to do. So I couldn't wait. I couldn't wait for the next person to ask me what I was going to do, because I was going to announce I'm going to play in the NFL. And so obviously I did. And one of 4 things was always said to me right after I said that. They go, oh, God, you know how hard that is? Do you know what the odds of you playing in the NFL are, Merril? Oh, my gosh, don't put all your eggs in one basket, son. I wouldn't want you to be disappointed. Or it was impossible. Mm-hmm. Now, this is why I see things through a child's eyes more than most adults. Like this and many other things like that happened to me as a kid. Like the people who were supposed to encourage me were the first ones to discourage me. But it also speaks to the resiliency of young kids. I was never fazed by that. I continue to believe I was going to do it. And I also heard this. I don't know if it's popular then. I don't know, but I had a teacher that used to write your goals down, put them in your room, where it's where you start and end your day. Great idea. But I got a problem. I got a little brother. Okay, I'm not putting anything on that wall, or it's going to come down. So I would pray diligently every night that one or both would disappear. I had a bunk. I was like, because I used to lay in my bed at night and just daydream about if I had my own bedroom, there's one thing I would want. I don't care about a bed, carpet, a door, or window. I don't care about a closet, or I wanted a wall of cork. I was like, if I could have an entire wall of cork, then I could pin my goals up. I could put them all up.
Yep.
Because I had envisioned pyramids, like steps, everything would lead to another thing. And I thought it would be the greatest bedroom ever if I could have that. Well, my dad actually, so in Pocatello, Idaho, this year, I think they got like 2 feet of snow just yesterday. They've had like 562 inches in certain areas.
Moved east?
No, that's not why I moved east. But that being said, so having a concrete basement was our playground. And so my dad announces we're going to convert to 2 bedrooms, a family room, and an office. And so we're going to lose that playground. But one of those bedrooms was going to be mine. So as soon as I heard that, I was like, well, can you make a wall of cork? He asked me why. I explained. And he said, well, we'll see what we can do. Well, he ends up making me a wall of cork, and that's where my first moment of truth happened in life. I'd put my goal up. I would play in the NFL. My favorite player was Walter Payton. My favorite team was the Steelers when I was a kid. And I put that up on that wall, and on the day I put it up there, it's the first time I actually had really self-reflected. I call it a moment of truth. I start thinking about all the things people said to me, how hard it was, the odds. Now, they're 0.02% of senior high school kids ever play in the National Football League. I don't know what that is in Pocatello, Idaho, but I know it's less.
I know it's
so there's some validity to those people saying that. That being said, when I put that goal up, there was that moment of where it was nothing more than words on a wall. Until I really self-reflected of my desire to really accomplish that. And that's when the words "find a way" pop into my head. And still to this day, when I say those words, they sit in my office today, it inspires action for me. That's the one thing it inspires. It inspires me to do something. Find out how to get it. Find out what is required, and then be committed to it. And if you're going to do that, be all in.
Do people still today, though? I mean, I assume, what are you, 57?
58.
58? I assume people today still instill doubt in you on any of your decisions.
Well, I think unfortunately people do that for whatever reason. Especially when something's a daunting task or it's hard. It's easy to say, "Oh, it's hard." You know how hard that is? Yeah, I do, and I'm willing to do it. That's why that day I committed. I was like, okay, I didn't know what the odds were, but obviously they were against me. But whatever work was required on that day, I committed to that. I was like, I'm going to do that. I'm going to do whatever it takes to get there.
And
that is awesome.
I was told by a lot of people, when you graduate high school with a 1.9 GPA,
You can graduate with that?
Yeah.
Okay, I didn't know that. I didn't know that.
Well, if
Maybe,
you,
maybe not in 1973, but
if you lay the proper legwork to be so annoying to the teachers and administration that they're like, screw it, get them out of here, we don't care. My dad's like, there's going to be nothing in that diploma case. There was. But I love it. People are like, you'll never go to college. You'll never do this. You'll never do that. All right, watch this.
Yeah, well.
And I've regulated at 48 because I still hear you won't be able to do that. And it's like, oh, there's some alcohol involved. There's no more hold this most nights, but it happens on occasion.
Yeah, well, I just think that there's not a human being that if they'll commit to every day, there's nothing that can't be changed, done, or accomplished.
May not be the
I've just seen
smartest,
it-
but
I've
you
seen
work
it too
hard.
many times. I've experienced it too many times. And listen, I mean, I tell people all the time, one of the greatest areas I've ever found great success is sitting in a chemotherapy chair.
I was
Sitting in
going
a
to go there
chemotherapy
next.
chair,
Yeah, that's another obstacle.
was probably on that journey, in that battle, taught me more about mind, body, and your mindset, your commitment, and success than probably anything that I've ever endured. Was that experience?
Do you ever do any audible or audio inspirational podcasts for people? Because you've been through that journey with the chemo. I mean,
Yeah.
I remember when my dad was going through it, looking for things to occupy his mind, to take it off of what exactly is being pumped into his body at this point in time, I think
Yeah.
would be inspirational from somebody that had been there.
Yeah, well, I try to do a lot with the Leukemia Lymphoma Society. I'm getting my red jacket for the American Cancer Society here in Pittsburgh. I mean, in Cincinnati. I want to say I was
fella.
there. Yeah, I want to say that I was their honorary like 13 years ago. So, but I've reconnected with them and trying to help them with their outing that they're having this year, and doing some stuff around here for people in that area. Because I tell people all the time, I find hope in people, and the 5 people that I talked to right after I got diagnosed, the first thing I asked my doctor, can you help me find somebody who's been through what I'm about to go through? And he gives me 5 people. They're anywhere from just removed to 5 years removed. After I talked to them, I'm actually more depressed than before because they had confirmed the brutality of the journey. They told me things no doctor or nurse ever did. Like they said, you're going to wake up one day, you're going to go in the shower, and you're going to look in the mirror, and there's going to be burn holes everywhere. And I'm like, burn holes? How could that be? It happened. Losing my hair, I already knew that was going to happen. Just the brutality of it was indescribable.
When did you go through it? Was it 02?
And I was actually, I was diagnosed on Valentine's Day, 2003.
3.
So it's 20 years ago this February.
Okay.
But in talking to those 5 people, as brutal as it was, one had just got done with treatment, and the other one up to 5 years removed. So there was a variety in there. And as brutal as it was, I remember hanging up the phone on. Every time I hung up, I'm like, oh my gosh, though, they made it. As brutal as it was, they had made it. I was like, that gave me hope. I don't care how hard it was on them or how hard it was, they gave me hope that they had survived it. And one lady told me that she was probably the best piece of advice I ever got. She's like, hey, Merril, just keep your routine. Because I asked, have any of you guys been training, or because I was playing in a basketball league, I was doing a lot of training, and I just remember she said, none of them said yes to that. They'd all said, nah. This one guy said, boy, at the end I couldn't even take the garbage out. I was so just spent. But that lady saying keep your routine really gave me an insight and hope to stay with all I was doing.
Are you still working with Highmark in Pennsylvania?
The caring place.
Sorry.
It was a grieving center. I lost my mom when I was a young kid.
Mm-hmm.
So, ironically, we ended up creating that foundation after the government took anybody ever heard of the CHIP program? It's an insurance program.
yeah.
That was started in Western Pennsylvania. And then the government took it, and it became a national model to raise insurance, or to insure families. It started out for young kids because all the steel mills got shut down, and parents didn't have money for health care for their kids. Then they didn't have money for adults. And so the Steelers, Highmark, and this preacher in town all got together, and we ended up calling it the Caring Team to raise money. It ended up being Kids Helping Kids because kids raise money for the program, but anyway, it got taken from us. And so about then, the director of our foundation lost his son tragically. He knew I'd lost my mom, so he asked what I did. I thought it was a trick question. I'm like, what do you mean? I mean, he goes, this grieving is brutal. And I'm like, Charlie, I didn't go anywhere. And that's when he's like, we got to change that. So he made the Caring Place. I became the chairman of that about 5 years later and was there for about 25 years.
Okay. Figured I'd ask, and I'm
helped a lot of people.
I'm gonna lighten it up a little bit.
Sure.
What is up with a short tie? Did you just not learn how to tie a single?
Okay, now, I'll tell you, you've seen one picture, right? You've seen one picture,
there you go.
right? You've never seen any other picture, right?
This is coming from a guy that can't button most of his jackets,
Right.
so I can't cover up the short
So
tie.
I'm just going to tell you this. I'll tell you what happened on that day. Okay, this is I was at ESPN for 21 years. I never took my jacket off, ever, except for this day. And I think the New York Times would come down to do, I think it was a story on NFL Live, okay? They came down. The tie that I had that day I accidentally grabbed it because I put it away over there because it was too short. It's like every tie I have will go just above my belt buckle. That's where my tie goes 99.9%
That's where it's supposed to be.
But on this day, because it was short, I was like, it don't matter. I wear my jacket, nobody will know. They had us take our jacket off. It's the only time in 21 years I ever took my jacket off.
And you've been branded
and
for it.
They took that picture that takes everybody.
Did you say no?
When I'm speaking.
It was a beautiful Windsor knot or whatever in the heck
Why
it
didn't you
was up
say
top.
no? I am not taking my jacket off.
I really didn't care. I was like, and it was a summer day too, though they did it. So I wanted to take my. It was too hot actually outside anyway. So.
I thought you were promoting Laurel and Hardy remake or something. I didn't know.
So I'm like, that's the picture that everybody thinks my tie is that short, and it's actually not that short. None of them are. That was the only tie that day.
I had to ask.
The only day.
Tell me about your transition from being an athlete to going to ESPN. How that happen for you?
Well, actually, that was a hard transition because my career ended prematurely in the middle of the season, and that's the hardest time for it to end because you have to watch people in your craft and doing your job, and that was brutal.
What year was that?
95.
95. Okay.
And I actually, my career ended. People say, "Oh, I heard a concussion ended your career," and I said, "Not true. If a concussion had ended my career, then I would never have played again after the Monday night game when it happened." And it actually is still the problem that exists today, is the problem that happened in 1995. It's the same thing that happened to Tua here when he played you guys on Thursday night. It's about care, okay? You failed in care. And there's a lot of things that umbrella care, okay? First of all, the most important thing in care is identification. When any head trauma, and this doesn't happen in sports, let me just throw this out there. And this is for the parents. The leading cause of head trauma in the entire country is tripping and falling.
Yep.
The most dangerous environment where that's going to probably happen is your home.
Your house, yeah.
So,
Alan, are you listening?
So, if you go, well, I don't want my sons to play, contact sport. Well, then you better not let them get in the shower. You better never let them get on a bike without a helmet on, or do a rollerblade or a skateboard without a helmet on, because that is the most dangerous thing a kid can do that could cause severe head trauma and death before they can put keys in a car, period. It is not football, it is not hockey, it is not lacrosse. It's because all of those sports actually should have protocols in place now. The equipment is, when we played, it was paper mache to what they have today. Equipment is extraordinary, instructions extraordinary, protocols exist. If all of them are executed properly, it's the safest in the history of sports. Like if you wanted to play, say, what era would you want to play sports in? It is right now.
Oh,
it is
God,
the
yeah.
best in the history of sports.
The helmets are awesome.
But that being said, it doesn't mean it's going to stop from a concussion, okay? Now, is your brain rattling around like Boston University will claim? Absolutely not. There's no scientific evidence of that whatsoever. And first thing you have to ask people if they want to disagree with that is, how do you know the antithesis of that? The only way you could know the antithesis of that is to go read the scientific literature. And keep in mind, I've had arguments with journalists on this. And you know what the evidence they sent me to show me I didn't know what I was talking about? They sent me a Sports Illustrated article. That's what they thought the scientific journal
At
was.
least it wasn't a Facebook post.
I was like, you got to be kidding me. You did not just send me an article from Sports Illustrated. That is not a scientific journal, you clown.
Right.
I'm like, it doesn't have methodology or conclusion in it. How do you even get to that? So you got to be very careful in this subject where you get your information from, but you don't get it from television, and you don't get it from radio, and you don't get it from TV. You've got to go read the scientific literature.
I love the fact you called him a clown.
Well,
It's perfect because you're right. Because everybody gets their information off Facebook, Instagram, whatever. Nobody
Twitter.
really dives in and gets 2 or 3
Right.
fact-based articles. You know, whether it's a journal or whatever.
Because he was arguing about, I talked, subconcussion does not exist. Okay, that's a scientific. It's scientifically, it's science fiction. It's made up. In fact, Boston University made it up because they got caught and got exposed for concussions caused CTE. That's what they claimed. Well, then they got exposed that there was no science behind that, and that was incorrect. And actually, people who have the same pattern never had a concussion in their entire life. So how could that happen? So they're like, oh, it must be subconcussion. What's subconcussion? Unless you have a threshold to measure something, you cannot gauge it scientifically. And there's no way to do that. The only way you can do that is put something on the brain to gauge that. Who's going to volunteer for that? I don't think anybody.
He might
So
have.
it can't be done. So, and there's scientific literature upon scientific literature talking about it poorly defined, misleading, and without a threshold cannot be defined, therefore science fiction. That exists in the scientists. If everybody wants to say argue otherwise, go, okay, well, show me the scientific literature that has the threshold and the definition behind it to support it. Well, they're not going to find it because it doesn't exist. So if they say, well, playing tackle football, your brain, okay, then riding a roller coaster, jumping on a trampoline, same thing. Same thing. So that much you can't do that either, right? So I'll sum it up like this, that everybody should know. Does anybody know when the brain is fully developed? 25, somebody said, you're right, age 25. So just if we know that right there, you shouldn't play contact sports till age 26. If they say that, you know, if your brain is supposedly rattling around when you're playing all these contact sports. Now keep in mind, hundreds of millions of, almost billions of people have played contact sports at some level, at some age, over 100 years. And I'm gonna include Canada in this too because they got hockey going on.
Right.
Okay, hundreds and hundreds of millions.
You're just doing that because of the Pittsburgh angle.
Hundreds of millions. Okay, so now let's go to, so their theory, Boston University, is you can't start playing until age 14. I can't even tell you how moronic that is. As soon as I heard that, I was like, nobody knows about the brain, and somebody doesn't know about football and sports, and they don't know about the human body. Something magically happens around 12, 13, 14 with all of us. It happens to everybody. You hit puberty. Kids go from 105 to 165. I've been 1 year I'm coaching kids, they're in diapers, and the next year they're shaving. So now you have, they say it's okay to start playing at age 14. Well, isn't that interesting? Collisions and contact are causing our brains to rattle. Well, now it's okay to start playing at 14 when the collisions are much more severe, kids are much bigger, and now force and energy does matter, versus it doesn't matter from 7 to 11. They're just not big and strong enough at age 7 and 11. Doesn't mean it can't a concussion can't happen, but the odds of it happening are rarely slim.
Well, and then show me out of 10 14-year-olds, I'll give you 10 different stages of development too. So that the whole notion that there's a certain age or a certain time that something like that can take place, I just think is complete crap.
Well, but let me finish with 14 to 19 because this is really important. If you hear it, there's something that critically is being developed from 14 to 19 in all of us. It's the amygdala area of our right side of our brain, which is responsible for emotions like anger and all those other things. So now it's okay to start playing now at age 14, and that development's not going to be affected. But it is going to be affected from 7 to 11. Now keep in mind, there is no scientific evidence to back this. None whatsoever. Boston University's own science doesn't support this. But that's what they say in the media is the only thing that gets out into the public. And that's disturbing, and it's deplorable and harmful because you have a doctor who has an MD, and I know we have a doctor sitting right here. It's the greatest crucifixion of the Hippocratic Oath. You're supposed to do no harm. When you literally lie about your science and you contradict yourself and you say that something exists that doesn't, I mean, you shouldn't be allowed to practice medicine. You shouldn't be allowed to be in the public forum in that manner.
Well, and everything you're saying applies to what is happening today, and not just when it comes to medical issues, but everything that we're being told from the government to the media and everywhere else. And you wrote about this in your book, and I've got a copy of your book here, Brainwashed. And I highlighted this, and this was a couple of years ago when I first got this book. And it's this phrase right here. Because of the endless press based on bad research with no context, millions of people have reached the following conclusion, and God help you if you publicly contradict it. And
that's true.
And so I read that, and that's why for you writing this book, I mean, you really put yourself out there because you knew that writing this book and talking about the things that you talk about are going to hold you out for people to take shots at you nonstop. And it happens. Anyone who contradicts what comes from the official source is essentially an enemy of the state. And when you do stuff like this, I mean, that's kind of the road that you go down.
Well, first thing you have to realize, first one to market usually wins. So Boston University got to market first. They said, and they got parents to believe, well, your kids are rattling around on the hockey field and the practice field and arenas, and they're causing this pattern, having problems, okay? That's how they sell it, absolutely false, but they sold that. Then that leads to the other thing that happens when you do that. It's easier to fool people than to convince them they've been fooled. And nobody wants to be fooled. Nobody wants to be wrong. And then when you say, well, how do you know that? Everybody wants to admit, well, the evening news was dead on. I read the morning paper, and it was true. And well, my brother Billy told me, and now it's got to be true. And I'm not going to be fooled. Well, and that's okay. You can be like that. And I'm not about changing your mind, but I am about opening your mind, because to know all the facts are vital. The one thing about that book that I will stand by from today, and if I have to republish to add stuff to it, there's two things in it that are powerful: the truth and the evidence of the truth. There's nobody that can sit there and go, they encounter me, they can say, oh, that you don't believe it? Well, I'll show them the paper. You want to talk about spectrum of disease paper, where Ann McKee, doctor, said after doing this research, all players have it? I'll let you read the conclusion where she states in there, you can't use this because the methodology was garbage, the science was garbage. You can't use this to give anybody any sense of degree of CT. It's in there. She wrote it. She authored it. But what'd she do in the media? I got to believe all football players have it. Well, what do you hit the evening news? Ann McKee, Boston University, says all players have it. That's the only thing you say.
That's what makes the headlines. Yeah, right. That's the most sensational part of the story.
That's what's disturbing, is that people like that
and that's what they want, and that's what they're gearing toward. They don't want to hear exactly from somebody that may or may not have experienced it. They want to form their own narrative, and you're coming in and saying,
no, they did worse than that. They created a hypothesis, and I'm just going to tell you from a science perspective, the most disgusting, brutal way to fail, and actually the improper way to do science, is create a hypothesis and then try to make your science match it. Can't be done.
Yeah.
Science is too complicated. Science is too hard, takes too long. You cannot do that.
It's like a police investigation. That's why they teach it. You don't pick a suspect and then make the evidence prove it. You follow the evidence to find a suspect.
But then they got millions.
They should have studied my high school golf coach. We had 0 incidents of concussion all 4 years.
You played golf?
Yeah. You claim you do. I've seen you play.
I've seen you play.
I get irritated and try to see.
This is where the stepbrother aspect.
That's embarrassing as hell.
So Merril, you told me before starting that you also play golf. You might have played golf with Solomon Wilcots, who's been a previous guest.
Solly and I are like partners.
Who is your favorite person to play golf with that is a former athlete that you interact with?
Well, should I tell you the first guy I ever played in a tournament with?
Sure.
Yes.
Arnold Palmer.
Oh my God!
How about that,
Arnie?
Arnold Palmer.
Did you guys drink half lemonade, half iced tea?
Baby.
Arnold wanted to kick my ass by the time it was. I might be the only guy Arnold Palmer does not like. Now let me just tell you what happened.
Well,
let me just tell you what happened.
You drive by his ball?
I'd never played golf. But this is I don't know if those who play golf. You remember when Ping came out?
Yes.
With the new. It was the top of the line. It was technology had just transformed. Wood clubs. There were these beautiful wood clubs, and that was the highest technology. And they gave a lot of these clubs out to the NFL players, and I had a whole set of them, but I'd never played golf. And so Bubby Brister, our quarterback at the time, was going to play. There was a tournament called the NFL Cadillac Classic. It was part of the senior tour, so it was part of the tour. This is not like a tournament, like, where it's, a fundraiser. This is part of their tour. Well, he can't play. He can't play. So he called me up and he said, hey, can you fill in for me to play at TPC at Sawgrass with Arnold Palmer? And I'm like, are you kidding me?
That sounds rough.
I will be there. Now,
Hell yeah.
Everybody's dressed like Payne Stewart. Okay, so we had Payne Stewart knickers on.
You got the knickers. And
we have, whatever your team is. So the Bengals would have their, the Bengal logo there, and their the Payne Stewart hat. And so I get there. Well, let me say, before I get there, Dermonti Dawson, who was our center for years, who's a Hall of Fame player, he used to always be in his backyard chipping, and I was like, God, you know what? So I called him up. I said, hey, Dirt, I see that you, I need to play golf. I need to have you teach me how to play golf. And he says, when is your tournament? I said, it's in a couple of days. And he's like, oh, you can't learn how to play golf in a couple of days. So I said, well, I said, Dirt, I got 2 days to learn how to play golf. Can you at least take me out and show me some of the things of golf? I got my new clubs, so we go. As soon as I made a swing, I was like, oh, you're right. You ain't going to learn how to play
You
this.
look like Charles Barkley.
But
this is going to be terrible.
So, but I was like, you know what? I'm just got to pick up some things, and try to fit in. How do they talk? How do they dress? The dress is going to be taken care of, but I just wanted to see some things. Now, one thing I noticed, every time we would finish with a putt, he would reach his putter in and flip the ball out. And I did that. The first time I did, I was like, I did it perfectly. I was like, okay, I can do that.
No.
I know where this is going.
So that becomes important. So anyway, so we get to the tournament. All right, now I'm excited. Now Arnold Palmer has his Arnie's Army. Arnie's he's got people everywhere.
Oh, yeah.
So Arnold tees off right down the middle. Gary Anderson, who's the other player, he's a great golfer too. He hits the ball right down the middle. Now I'm just assuming, okay, that everybody knows I don't know how to play. So I'm not really that concerned about it. I take a swing and I push the ball all the way off the right, like it went. I mean, almost hit people.
Did you hit somebody?
No, I didn't hit anybody because people got out of the way when I went to swing. And then and Arnold threw a ball up on the stand. He goes, hey, try that again. So this time I pull all the way to the left. Well, we're walking off the tee box, and I'm walking by him, and he reaches in his back pocket, and he pulls a piece of paper out, and he's looking at it. He said, you're a 10 handicap? I said, oh. I said, Mr. Palmer, no, I'm like 10 a hole.
10
And he looks back at his paper. He said, you're a 10 today. So once we had teed off, since it was a tournament, nobody changed the handicap. They left Bubby Brister's handicap on my card.
Oh, my God.
Okay. So I am literally Army golfing this. I'm right, left. I mean, I'm just sawing my way up here. But all the way there, I'm like, okay, I got to do something to get him back on my side. So I finally make the putt. I put it in, and I'm about a 10 at this point. I reach my putter in. I pull the ball out, and it comes out perfectly. I catch that perfectly. And here he comes. I'm like, I knew this was it. I brought him back to me.
This is the moment.
He puts his arm around me, and he said, hey, that little stunt you just pulled, personally, that doesn't bother me. But the guy behind me is going to be pissed off with that divot you just left in the I was just like, oh, my God.
Who was the guy behind you?
I have no idea. That was irrelevant at that point. I was just like, oh, my gosh. 18 holes of that. 18 holes.
Did you have a drink with him afterwards?
No.
Did he just say, get the hell away from me?
Let me get to the 18th hole. Okay, I'm coming up over to the trees all the way to the right. Okay. I hit a ball, it hits the tree and goes back further than where I was standing. But there's no cameras over there, so I'm thinking, well, you know what? Nobody knows I'm over here. I take the ball and I walk up the tree line and I drop it down where I can get out, and I punch it out. And I look up and there's Arnold and Gary taking the team photo. They took the team photo without me in it. I was like, they walked up. I never saw it.
That was before Photoshop,
Dude,
so they couldn't get you out of it.
I'm telling you,
Say,
it was
wait a
the
minute.
longest 18 holes of my
I'm part
entire
of the team.
Arnold did not care. He did not care. He wanted nothing to do with me. Because he lost it. He loses the tournament, and it was probably a direct result of my play. But I still to this day, it was not my fault.
He's won enough tournaments for crying out loud.
Well, that's not the way he was looking at it.
Why the hell did Bubby Brister call you? He had to know there's other golfers on the team.
Well, Bubby and I just swapped out. I don't know why.
That's
I'm
crazy.
just because it was Arnold Palmer. Because to play with Arnold Palmer, he's like, I know who would not want to play with Arnold Palmer?
I don't know.
I know I'd do it if he was.
Yeah,
still alive.
I mean, who?
I got to
don't
sit-
pass that up.
I got to
You know,
watch him
like-
play golf once. That was pretty cool.
Yeah.
So,
well, it was
so
a
Merril,
long day. It was a long
Merril,
day.
I told you that we're live streaming, so we've got some people in the chats, and a question came through the comments and says, now that it's been implemented for a year-ish, I'd like to know how he feels about the NCAA player endorsements, how that's affected athletics, college recruiting, and players going pro.
Good old NIL.
Yeah, okay. Now let me just preface it like this. When I used to play, I didn't come from anything. I had no money. I used to work at a farm and a ranch, and I used to actually have one pair of sweats that I used to flip inside out so it looked like I had two pairs. That's how much money I had. I mean, that's how. And this is always confusing to me. There was I remember I had a friend who had an academic scholarship. Academic scholarship was no different than my football scholarship. That's what they paid for. But he could work. He could have people give him money, and he didn't get his scholarship taken from him. And I'm like, there was moments I could have done this job. I worked for this cleaning company that I could have worked for, but if I got caught working, I was going to lose my scholarship. And I'm like, man. So it's so hard to get by not being able to do that. So there's that perspective of how come that scholarship gets penalized and these others don't. Okay, now, listen, Pandora's box has been opened up here because now it's gone to extremes that, you're looking at some schools where there's 12 players get all the money. There are some schools, and I think this is what
one player gets all the money.
Or one player, and then
May or may not rhyme with Alabama, probably.
Yeah, you're paying guys, to come to school. I know that a lot of kids stayed in school because they're making more money than they think they're going to make based on when they're going to draft.
They want to take the pay cut.
Right.
Yeah.
That is true. We used to say that as a secret. We used to say that as a joke, because of people getting paid under the table.
Yep.
But
Yeah,
now
they made a movie about it,
Yeah.
Blue Chips, I believe. It was basketball set, but
I guess I
was
do
a
look
great
at it this way. I would like to see some type of a balance where like all the kids got something.
Yeah.
And you get and people say we get their education paid for, and I agree with that. But they're creating revenue for the university. I mean, they are doing that. That they are playing a role in that. I mean, and everybody else is making money doing that. The athletic director, the coaches. I mean. I just think there has to be some type of a balance.
Well, there's got to be a way to compensate them for that, I think.
Yeah, and I've
But
always believed that
the
because I was
system-
that player, and I was like, how can we I lose my scholarship if somebody gives me $100.
But the system, it seems like that they came up with, it seems like the wild, wild west, and things are just going crazy out there. And now, and I was always under the impression that this was not supposed to be the school coming up with money to pay the students or the student athlete.
Endorsement wise.
Is that they go out and
Yeah,
seek these on their own. But now, all the reporting I'm hearing about this now is that Ohio State's going to come up with X number of dollars, and LSU is going to come up with X number of dollars, and Alabama's going to come up with X number of dollars. The schools are being, put to the test to come up with as much money as they possibly can.
Well, you know what?
And I didn't think it was supposed to work that way.
I don't think it. It wasn't. Now you know what? And I know this because I just come back from University of Texas's campus and talking to coaches there. See, now you know what coaches are doing? They don't walk you in and go, "Hey, look at our facility here. Look at our." They're like, their parents walk in, players walk in, and go, "How much?"
That's all.
They don't give
That's
a rat's rump about the stadium or the facility or the education.
here's
like,
a list, and this
what
car
can you pay
dealer
me?
told me this is the max he'll pay you to come to this college.
Yep.
What are your thoughts, though? I mean, here's my biggest pet peeve. Is you commit to a college to go there play, and it's kind of a quid pro quo. They're going to earn revenue from you playing sports there. You're going to get an education and bolster your standing for any pro draft. You bump out third year in, or a coach bumps out. I think you need to pay back some money. You need to pay it forward as an athlete. Because you took a scholarship from somebody that may have wanted to get that education as well.
I don't think athletes are about paying money.
Well, I see, but you're talking about the 0.01%. I'm looking at this. What about all the kids that don't play in the National Football League, and are there as a part of the team and contributing to the university and helping them as a program? Some kids aren't getting paid. That's what I'm like. How can that be balanced out? Now listen, if you got the star players making more money than the rest, I'm fine with that.
Yep.
But somehow, the rest of the rest of the kids are making some type of money.
Well, Dan, did you get paid as a water boy at Xavier University in the football program?
And I don't know if I have if I could find a good lawyer, maybe I could go back and lawyer up and get that taken care of.
Nicely played, sir.
I think it was
Nicely
1819, and they didn't have lawyers back then.
All right.
Even Lincoln had to study under somebody for a while.
But Merril, I've had the good fortune to have you on my radio show about 4 or 5 times now, and it's been great. And I remember the day that John Madden died. I called you, and I wanted you to come on and talk about John Madden. And you told me then that you said, "Did you know I was a member of the ALL Madden team?" And I did. At that time, I did not know that. Yeah. And you've told that story on my radio show a couple of times, and I would like you to tell that story now about you being a member of the ALL Madden team.
Well, I got to set this precedence. Like, every player wanted to be an ALL Madden player. They meant more than being in the Pro Bowl. I mean, it was right up there with the Super Bowl. Like, if Madden made you a player on his team, and he was the one who selected it. He didn't have a panel. He didn't have a group of. He selected them. His only rule, he had to see you play, and that was his testimony to why you're on the team. Well, because he was at Fox at the time, he was predominantly NFC, and the only time they came into your house is if a Tennessee team came to your house. Well, we would only have 2 teams a year that came into our, and it'd have to be a good team too. It couldn't be like the Bucks. It would have to be like, back in the day, they, with Brady, they'd do it now. But back in the day, the Bucks were not going to get John Madden. But Dallas would get Madden, the Eagles would get Madden, Giants would get Madden. So the Eagles are coming to town, and the word's out that Madden's going to be at our game. And so I met with him on a Saturday when we do our meetings, and then what ended up happening in the game is actually. Reggie White was notorious for, if he was not having success in an area, he would start walking up and down the offensive line looking for a weak link. And we've seen him do that before. Like, we knew, like, at some point, if he's not having the day, he's going to start moving around, so we got to be careful for that. So it was about third quarter, and all of a sudden he starts walking back and forth. Well, he stops right at our right guard, which was a guy named Brian Blankenship. In fact, I wish, just so you know, I would never throw my teammate on the bus. If he was sitting right here, I would tell this story, okay?
That a boy.
Because he's a dear friend of mine, and he would probably, yes, he's man enough to admit it. Well, he lines up over him, and Brian Blankenship starts screaming at the top of his lungs, "Help! Help! Help!"
So you didn't have a pre-planned signal for that back then?
Well, we did not have a plan for him lining over him. We had a line for him out on our right tackle, Tunchilkin, but we did not have a plan for that.
Oh, my God.
So he starts screaming for help. We snapped the ball, and then Reggie did one of his clubs, and just hits him. Brian Blankenship went flying, and so I was on that side of the ball, so I stepped up, and I ended up, I'm going at it with Reggie White, just battling him. We end up throwing the ball for a first down. Well, the next time we get to a third, we'll go back to huddle. And we're like, "Hey, Brian, don't scream help. We'll help you, man. That's a dead giveaway." Well, it was too late because first of all, he'd already been screaming for help. Second of all, he got destroyed. So the next third down, sure enough, Reggie White walks up and lines up right over him. And he screams for help again. He does the same thing, slaps him out of the way, and I stepped up and I blocked Reggie White. And, okay, now Madden in the booth is going nuts over this. Okay, he is like losing his mind that I've just blocked Reggie White twice, and we completed 2 passes, and we got the first down. And then at the end of the game, there was a 4th and 1. And I break a tackle for about 30 yards. In fact, it was one of the, like, when I talk about, it was like running into a brick wall for like 59 minutes against their defense. I was like, I think I got like an inch a carry, right? I think I had a total of 99 yards rushing, and I got it all on like the last run I had. But I break through the tackle, and I remember as I thought I was going to score a touchdown because with everybody at the line of scrimmage like that, you just, not very seldom somebody going to catch it. And man, somebody hit me, and I'm telling you, he hit me with a force like I just completely, like it was unhuman-like. It was Reggie White. I was like, oh my. Anyway, so that seals the game. Well, that's why he made me an ALL Madden player.
Nice.
that game. So I get a call. I was actually in Texas hunting with Bubby Brister, and he called. He called me up, and he said, "I just want you to know that."
It's a good thing
So
you
he take that very like he made the call. My trophy is a plaque that weighs 35 pounds, and it's chiseled out of metal, and it has that old football player that's standing in that trench coat in a muddy, rainy day. That's the picture of it, and then on the back is everybody's names that made the All Madden.
How
That's
cool
awesome.
is that?
I've seen that plaque, and that is so cool.
Yeah, it is the greatest
Two things.
trophy.
One, good thing you were hunting with Bubby and not Dick Cheney.
Right.
And two, 35 pounds of plaque sounds like something you see in Dan's heart. So that's good.
How does that
I don't
make?
know how you drew that comparison. That's
No, I'm all right.
Oh, that's
and they
I'll
gave
be
an
all
All
right.
Madden
It's
sweater.
Rob, it's
an All
normal.
Madden sweater. It was actually I've never worn the sweater other than the day that he passed away. I put it on and took a picture. It's the only time I've ever worn it.
What's that make you feel like when you get it? You look at your cell phone and you see John Madden come up on the screen,
Well,
or however
well,
that works. I mean, just to have, a legend, an absolute legend, who's calling Merril Hoge.
It would have been 90.
You know, I don't think it didn't really set in.
Maybe not cell
It
phones.
didn't-
However,
it-
John
it-
Madden wants to talk to you.
It didn't set in till I got that the package in the mail. That's when it was when I pulled it. I was like, holy cow! I'm like, I'm serious. When they came in there, you know those dollies that they move around heavy stuff. I swear, the guy come off the truck with that dolly
Jesus.
and set it on my porch. I was like, oh my gosh! But that's when I opened that up. That's when it. And I looked at the back of the. I'm trying to think who our running backs were. Me and Emmitt Smith, Barry Sanders.
All legends.
And Eric, and I think Eric Dickerson. Anyway, all the players on there.
Just
are
such a cool and
Yeah,
I've
it
seen
was- it was-
I've seen that plaque before, and I can only imagine it showing up and you open it up and going, holy shit, here I am.
Yeah, but
If
that's
there's
the
one thing I want. If I was one thing, it's probably the only thing I'd keep from my NFL career. That I was like, that was worth it.
Being on the All Madden
That's
team.
awesome.
Yeah.
He was an icon, man.
And that's the thing.
Yeah. He was
The vast majority of the guys on that team were all NFC players. And
Yeah, that was
just-
the only problem with it because
Just a sprinkling of AFC guys.
AFC. Yeah, very few AFC guys ever got that because he stopped doing it after a while. And when he stopped doing it, everybody was. Everybody was bummed when he stopped doing it because that's what everybody achieved.
I love that
tried
story,
for.
though.
Yeah.
I love that story.
Aside,
Well, thank you. I sure appreciate that.
That's a huge accomplishment.
aside from Reggie White, ungodly hitting you,
Yeah.
who else was one of the hardest hitters if you're coming up the hole? Defensive lineman, DB.
Lawrence Taylor was a beast beyond description. I mean, he was. You know, I'm actually glad we got to play against him because he was a force. I mean, he was fun to play because he was just so good. He was so dynamic and he was so challenging. I loved playing against Lawrence Taylor. But the guy who actually hit me the hardest I've ever been hit was actually in practice, and he finally got in the Hall of Fame a couple years ago. And for those of you who are football historians or fans, he was actually the standard in the National Football League. He was the greatest hitter before Ronnie Lott and all those other players that got all the credit for it. It was Donnie Shell. Donnie Shell
I remember
is
him.
still the greatest striker in the history of our game. Donnie Shell was the greatest. He was if you remember Earl Campbell, the playoff game they had in Pittsburgh, and Earl Campbell gets hit down on the goal line. It was the one where that was controversial catch in the end zone. They ruled it not a catch, but it clearly was a catch. If it was today, it'd have been a catch. But Donnie Shell hit Earl Campbell, and it was the beginning of the end of Earl Campbell on that day when he hit him. Donnie Shell was a $189, about 5'10", a $189, and could just separate a human being. Doesn't matter how big they were, doesn't how tall they were, how strong they were. I saw nobody that could hit people like him. He was incredible.
What about the SWAT team?
SWAT team.
Solomon Wilcots.
Oh,
So you're saying that playing against Solomon wasn't all that challenging.
I'm gonna say this:
Where
when I
is
first got
Solomon?
when I first got into Pittsburgh, Cincinnati was. I mean, they were the best team in our division. They had. I mean, Fletcher. Who was 33.
What, David Fulcher?
David Fulcher.
Fulrock. Yep.
Like we used to sit
call
there and
him
go,
Fulrock.
that is just unfair. I'm like, because he was 33. Because I remember his number was 33. But that dude was like, he has no business being back there.
Yeah.
He's so big. I'm like, that dude was as big as a
So it's
linebacker.
the size of a linebacker playing safety or cornerback. Yeah.
They drop him in the box, and we were like, we like to get help on some linebackers. I think he's the only safety I ever played. We're like, we might need some help on that guy too.
Just bypass the
Oh my
linebackers. Keep going.
gosh,
Turn right.
That guy was unbelievable, man. They were hard. They were the team to beat when we got in this division.
Yeah, and then you
we were
guys-
probably the worst team actually when I first got that, because that was that transition where Chuck was developing new players. And when I first got in the league, I walked in my locker. They gave me Franco Harris's locker. I sat down there. I sat next
Oh
to
my
Don.
God!
I
You
know.
had Franco's locker?
And then I locker next to
Did
Don
you have a
Michel.
Coke with it?
I did not.
That
but
was
then,
Joe Green. That
yeah,
was
oh,
me,
was it
Joe
Joe?
Green.
That comes to the next one. And then Joe Green was our defensive line coach. Joe Green comes walking in. And then when I step in the huddle, the first guy I stand next to is Mike Webster. That was like my first day in Pittsburgh. I was like, oh my God.
You and Mike Webster wound up being pretty tight, didn't you?
Well, yeah, we were roommates. We were roommates,
Yeah.
Here he is. There's the legend.
Oh, you got it, Solly. You got here too late. He was throwing you under the bus, man.
He did. Yeah.
Tell me, we lost Franco Harris. I guess it's been about a year or so now, maybe a little bit longer.
No,
but
just unfortunately, he just died
Yeah.
towards the end of the year. This
Tell me,
season, the
tell me-
conclusion of this season.
tell me about the Franco Harris you knew.
Well, I will tell you this. There's genuine, like, everybody knows somebody who is truly genuine. Because Mike Ditka. There's three people that are the most genuine people I've ever been around: my brother, Bubby Brister, and Mike Ditka. When I say genuine, they do so many. They're thinking of others. They always take care of everybody. They just think above and beyond, and that's why I put them as genuine people. Franco Harris was a genuine human being, a true genuine human being, a great listener. He was reverent. He changed the game. He's got the greatest play in NFL history, and he's an icon. Every one of those guys, Franco Harris, Mike Webster, John Stallworth, Terry Bradshaw, Rocky Bleier, you name it, Lynn Swann, everybody points at Franco Harris as the guy who brought everybody together. It wasn't until they got him that they had a chance to be as dominant as they were. Every one of them.
Merrill, you being with ESPN, we got to pay the bills a little bit here. Before we get back to how you were just telling us the SWAT team was nothing and you ran over them regularly.
He's not even paying attention.
Solid knows you guys way too well to fall into that one.
Elite Automotive. Car won't start. A light is on. Call Elite Automotive at 859-431-3548. Elite Automotive has the mechanics to take care of all your needs. Their mechanics are ASE certified in a modern facility with the most up-to-date equipment and diagnostic tools in the industry. You can schedule your appointment online at Elite Automotive, get a free shuttle, and walk-ins are always welcome. You also get a 1-year part and labor warranty with unlimited mileage. Taking care of customers is the main priority at Elite Automotive. Give them a call today for your automotive needs. Elite Automotive, 859-431-3548. Wish they had them back then, because you might have had a light on after the SWAT team, or no?
The check engine light came on.
Well, I will tell you this. I'm telling you, with our first couple of years, these guys, the Bengals, we couldn't beat them.
I'm trying to remember the timing. I mean, the Jets weren't as crappy as they've always been back in those days.
They were a pretty good football
Giants
team.
were good. Who are the Jets did you dislike?
At the Jets?
Running against.
Oh, running against? Oh, God. Well, listen, I think actually the Houston was, actually our division was a wicked division. I mean, the Bengals were, I thought one of the best. But Houston was always the most talented, and they were always supposed to win it, with Jerry Glanville down there. Cleveland was in the AFC Championship game twice against Denver, so they were constantly in it too.
It was a fun.
But our division was not easy. I mean, our division was probably the most brutal division. I mean, they had the House of Pain. I mean, they'd never get away with all the stuff they got away with.
No, absolutely not.
They put bounties on people. Literally put bounties on people. Jerry Glanville was even in it, and they contributed to that, and they talked about that. So that was
fun.
when you entered that dome, It was.
No,
You
that
better be ready, but
So-
your head better literally be on a
it
swivel.
was Smash Mouth. I mean, it was Smash Mouth,
Oh, yeah.
and
No doubt.
I'm glad
No
I didn't
doubt.
play. I'm glad I played golf in high school. Didn't become a
That's what makes it fun.
.2%er.
That's what makes it fun, man. Taking on those guys.
So let's get up to modern day here, and I've also had you on a couple of times when the Bengals were entering the playoffs or making their playoff run, and I think one of the most startling things that you've said to me on the air is that you think that Joe Burrow is the best quarterback in the NFL today.
I still believe that.
Tell me about
Still,
that.
as well. And it's
Yeah.
and it wasn't.
You
because I
guys
knew
like
this
Joe
would be-
Burrow? There you go.
Okay, listen, in this league, you have to be able to process things and win from the pocket. Period. Okay, Lamar Jackson. Okay, there's a big reason. I don't know what's talked about Lamar Jackson because I don't watch what they're talking about.
$34 million. Could you imagine? Did anyone ever
Well,
pay you $34 million?
Right. But the bigger
I mean,
part,
for God's
Leave it
sake.
in
the
the
bigger
pocket and
story.
dying.
Well, but see why do they not? Why do the Ravens not commit $300 million? There's a reason they don't commit that to him. Because Lamar Jackson is a fantastic athlete. He's an average quarterback. He has not finished the season in the last 2 years. He come out of Louisville, he was an average quarterback. He was a great athlete. You cannot get married to somebody who's not going to finish the season, who's an average quarterback. The guys who win in this league have to process from the pocket and be good from the pocket. And that is why Joe Burrow
Stay
is
in the
best.
pocket too.
Right.
You spend the money on the
Right.
line. You stay in that pocket.
Right, that's why, I mean, when you watch how he throws and processes, that's why he's the best. And I'm not going to back that. I'll let Solid get in on this too, but I'm not going to back off that. I mean, that doesn't mean Patrick Mahomes is chopped liver. I mean, Patrick Mahomes is ridiculous. But if you wanted to use what's going on with Lamar Jackson, there is no way, if you just talk about playing the quarterback position and how he has to play it, he has weaknesses that he had at Louisville, and he's never gotten better here. When you make him throw it from a traditional set, which eventually you have to at some point, it's already happened, and he's been exposed for it, he's not good at it. You can't put $200-300 million in a guy who's getting older and getting slower. He's not getting faster, and he's not getting younger.
Well, tell me
So
if
he's
I'm
gotta
wrong.
play that better.
Tell me if I'm wrong, but I look at Lamar Jackson, and if he's going to find a situation that he can go to, it's got to be a place where they've already got players that can fit into the kind of system that he needs to be able to perform at his best. And I just don't know of any other NFL teams that are structured that way to have the kind of quarterback that has the skill set that he has.
Listen, the Ravens, the one thing the Ravens have done a great job of is they do the one thing you have to do in our league to win consistently. They control the tempo. They run the football as good as anybody. There's nobody that runs it better. There's nobody that you don't want to deal with more than those guys. They create, and ultimately that is a sign, though. They've done it for years. Okay, Lamar Jackson's been there, and what have they done? They've continued to stay focused on the running game, be the best running game. That is not an accident. You're doing that to hide what your deficiencies are back there. He throws the ball well off of that. Now, if you take him and put him in a Patrick Mahomes system, there ain't no way he's doing what Patrick Mahomes is. He ain't throwing the ball like Patrick Mahomes. There is no way. He would be exposed for the kind of quarterback that he is. He's a great athlete. He's an average quarterback. And the Ravens have done a great job of disguising that and hiding that. He's going to have to go to some place that dominates in the running game. And if they can do that and stay focused there, and he complements that, but at some point, it still comes back to he's got to throw the football at some point. And when he does that, he's going to be who he is. He's an average thrower from that perspective. He's dynamic off of what they're doing.
Yeah.
But if he's asked to do what Joe Burrow does regularly, Patrick Mahomes does regularly, he can't. That's not how he can play. And so you can't put $300 million in a guy. He hasn't finished the last 2 years. He's not finished the last 2 seasons. And I knew that. I knew it was going to happen day one. There's no way the Ravens could do that and be married to him and stuck with him and then Huntley playing for you for 3 years. You just can't do that.
All
Now,
right.
you guys,
Well, ladies and
can I-
gentlemen,
can I say something?
you
know
may have
listen-
noticed we've been joined by former
no.
Bengal great Solomon Wilcox. Let's give it up for Solomon. I don't need to introduce you to Merril Hoge, do I?
I've been taking a poll, and I've been talking to a lot of running backs, and my good friend here, Merril Hoge, was a hell of a running back. You guys know this.
Yeah.
Yes.
But now they're trying to get the quarterbacks to do the running back job, and these quarterbacks who are playing running back, they're all getting hurt. And even today, Sean McDermott, the head coach of the Buffalo Bills, said that he wants his quarterback running less. And I've had all these running backs telling me the quarterbacks who run the ball frequently and who try to play the role of a running back eventually are going to get hurt. So you're not going to get Merril to sign off on any quarterback who's trying to run the ball the majority of the time. Just not happening. Am I right, Merril?
You're right, Sally.
Let the running backs play running backs, and let the quarterbacks play quarterback. There you go.
I like that analogy.
It all makes sense here on the One More and I'm Out of Here podcast. It makes complete sense. We got it all figured out.
First of all, we cringe if we saw Joe Burrow running a read option where he's the designed runner. We would all cringe. We would all say the Bengals are crazy. What are you doing? Right? I mean, that's not what you want. So.
There's many a day on it, Sunday or Monday night, we sit up here and we see Burrow run. It's like, oh, dear God, please get up. Please be walking normal. Crummy, you know what I'm saying, 100%, right?
100%.
Oh, 100%. You got to take it. You got to take a drink of your ice water.
Well, it is. This whole thing is turned into, they don't. I understand why the Ravens did what they did. I completely understand it. From a financial perspective, I completely get it.
Yeah.
So what's going to happen? Because I saw the headline on ESPN right before Merril came in, and he said he's requested a trade. So how does that change with him being hit with the franchise tag? Does it change, or does he have any?
A team would have to give the Ravens 2 first-round picks. It's the condition.
Is that what it is? 2 first-rounders?
Yeah, it's the condition of using. They use the what's called a non-exclusive franchise tag on them. And which means that they would, if another team offered him a contract and he signed it, the Ravens would have the right to match it. And if they don't match it, they get 2 first-round picks from that other team as compensation.
Can they offer him a contract at the same amount, or
they can pay him whatever they want to pay him?
More? Yeah, okay.
They can pay him whatever they want.
Could be more or less.
And the Ravens would have the first right of refusal. They would have the option to match it. They would probably take the 2 first-round picks.
Oh yeah.
But he was going to get $34.5 million for 1 year.
Right.
No, he will get that.
Yes, he's going to get.
He's going to get that no matter what happens.
If he signs the franchise tag.
He's got to sign it. But
He's got to sign it, like Jesse Bates did last year, right?
I mean,
Remember
most
Jesse
of us
Bates?
can't get our heads around that kind of money.
Well, nobody's going broke paying them. Right?
That's a fact. That is a fact.
Like our guys
raise your hand. Would you take $34 million to get the franchise tag? Everyone in this room, 100%.
You essentially have billionaires grabbing change out of their ashtray of their car that their driver is driving them to the stadium and just throwing it.
What if you could have gotten $44 million as opposed to 32? Because he could have. He turned down a 3-year. $133 million contract.
Is that what the Ravens?
It was fully guaranteed.
That's what the Ravens offered in.
And that's an average of $44 million a year.
So let me ask.
They offered him a 5-year, $250 million contract. $133 million was guaranteed, and he turned that down.
So let me ask 2 former NFL stars. Is he? I mean, I think I know the answer, or at least I have my opinion of the answer.
I think you're going to ask the question I wanted to ask.
Is he at a disadvantage not having an agent and dealing with, his mother's working, a lot of deals or whatever, talks and whatever. Is he at a disadvantage, from 2 former NFL stars? Is that a disadvantage or not?
I will say this. I'm going to name you 2 players who just recently signed contracts. DeAndre Hopkins, wide receiver for the Arizona Cardinals. He was the first guy making upwards of $25 million a year as a wide receiver.
Yeah.
He's right now the 3rd highest wide receiver per annual contract, $27 million a year. And only Tyreek Hill passed him last year at $30 million a year. He negotiated that deal himself.
I forgot about Tyreek.
With the Arizona Cardinals.
That's not bad.
Roquan Smith was traded from the Chicago Bears at midway in the season to the Baltimore Ravens. negotiated his own contract with the Ravens.
So they've dealt with it before.
He's now the highest paid inside linebacker in football. Didn't seem to hurt him.
Right.
So it would be easy, low-hanging fruit for me to say, yeah. He can't negotiate his own deal. What is he doing? But other players are doing it, and one player just did it with the same team he's negotiating with. Yeah. So I'm not in the room. I don't know what he's saying, what he's not saying. So, but it's getting done. Players are doing it. But I'd hate to go in court and have to represent myself. Right. If you know what I'm saying.
And that's kind of where I was leading. I mean, but curiosity killed the cat.
I mean, I don't know what he's working with. I don't know if he has the and Merril could tell you this. These numbers are made available to us through our players union, so we have all the information we need to go in armed, knowing what other people are getting. The Ravens' problem is what Deshaun Watson got. They don't want to base it on that. They don't want that to serve as a precedent.
It changed everything. It changed everything.
Exactly. Yeah. Like if your neighbor sold his house for X, and you know your house looks better than his house, you would want X 0.5. Am I right?
Right. Absolutely.
And if they told you, no, we're not even giving you X, you would have a problem. Because it's called a comp, right?
Yep.
It's comparable.
People find out they live next to Dan Carroll and they sell their house for X minus 0.5.
There you go.
That's all right.
Keeps Wolfangle in business. Yeah. So
that's why we love her.
Merril was saying he plays golf with you, and he said he is a 10 handicap.
I play with him.
Who wins?
Now
We play together.
Let me tell you, Solly and I are like
even Steven.
No.
But I would guys say that Solly probably wins more than I do. I'll
But Merril doesn't. See, you gotta understand. He doesn't place a priority on that.
No, he was just telling us the Arnold Palmer
thing,
story.
and Kevin can vouch. The last thing he's focused on is me. Is that a fair statement?
That is true. That is brutally fair. That is brutally fair.
You gotta understand. In order to lose to someone, you gotta be diametrically opposed to that individual and say, I'm going up against him. If he doesn't even exist and you're just doing your thing, like, it doesn't matter,
no, that's
right?
Funny. What he's saying is, like,
you
we
got
drive
bigger fish to fry when you're on the golf course?
No, see, we ride in our own car.
Separate cars.
Wow.
Yeah. Sometimes
I thought you guys were friends.
We are. We're great friends.
That's what everyone says.
Everybody's like, sometimes he'll be on the green, I'll be at the tee box, or he'll be on the tee box, I'll be at the green. I mean, we
tee off. We tee off.
Yeah.
Merril says, "See you on the green," and we do.
You're not taking the same route to get there. You're going different ways.
We talk on the tee box, and we talk on the green. What's our fastest round? 18 holes at Coast.
How much? 2:38. 2 minutes 38. 2 hours and 38 minutes.
That's not bad.
He nailed it. He's right.
Killed it pretty good.
See, now actually, we're going down to. You ever heard of Isleworth Golf Course in Orlando? So we're going down there to play, and they were playing the Grove, Jordan's club. We're going to play that. We're playing Wednesday, Thursday. We're heading down to Orlando.
Who talks more smack on the tee box?
Nobody.
You
talks
or
smack.
so? Oh, come on, bull.
No, actually,
you guys got to understand. You got to have people who really care.
Yeah. that bothers them, or they're into that. Yeah,
well, it seems like
See that tree to the right? I bet you $10 your ball hits that thing and goes somewhere.
Well, it seems like it works out perfectly because I'm open those days, so I'll see you on the first tee.
We care a lot about our own game.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to get around the course without embarrassing myself, and he is seeking perfection. Trust me. I mean, he's on the range for an hour, then he plays.
He did play golf with Arnold Palmer.
Yeah.
And I know that he told you that.
You've
story,
heard that story,
right?
huh?
Yeah.
That's brutal.
Arnold straightened him out.
Who's the most famous person you played with?
Oh wow, I don't.
Golfer? How about pro golfer? You played
Merril
with
Hoge,
pro
who
golfer?
played with Arnold Palmer.
No, I played with Michael Jordan.
Oh, he's not a pro. Michael Jordan's not a pro golfer.
He is a pro golfer, Dan.
No, he's not.
No, he's not.
No, he's not. No, he's not. But the things you talk about are like phenomenal. They're just phenomenal.
Yeah.
He's a phenomenal person.
That's cool. That's awesome.
Yeah. So it was fun.
So we're live streaming now. When we had you on, we weren't video yet. So now we're live stream on YouTube, and we've got people that are following us and throwing comments in. And a friend of ours, Rich Crumman, and I'm putting this up on the screen. If you go to the YouTube, you'll see it. But he said they both should come play and see you guys in person, because we're going to be doing a live podcast for the FOP Lodge 74 golf outing in honor of Sonny Kim, Cincinnati police officer who passed away. That's May 19th at Fairfield Greens. I'm going to get you guys information if you guys are interested.
Give us a date.
May 19th.
May 19th?
May
I think
19th.
we're around May 19th.
But I'm going to get that out to you. I mean, just.
That'd be great.
But somebody that is actually, and I'm going to segue in, because Solomon got one as well. But our friends from Engraved in USA always take care of us with our guests. So every guest that we have.
Well, drop the Cody holder on the floor.
I just dropped something. Right. I can grab that. Well, we're going to present this to Merril Hoge for coming on. So it's got our logo on the one side.
That's a beautiful thing, boys. I appreciate it.
And take a look at the other side.
Then on the other side.
Now I really love it. That's going on my desk.
How about that?
That's
cool?
awesome.
Yeah.
That is very cool. Thank
so
you, guys.
thanks to our
That's
friends at
very
Engraved
cool.
USA. And,
yeah, tell them thank you.
Definitely.
That looks awesome. That's beautiful,
I
actually.
think when I was here this fall, I got a shot glass.
And your dad got a big cake growler.
Oh, yeah, you guys.
I didn't realize
guys
they said your dad was here. And I was like,
yeah, they
oh
took
my
good
god.
care of my dad.
Yeah, but he's
he asked
awesome.
me, he's like, when are we going back?
Well, whenever he wants to. I don't even need you on. I want
yeah.
your
You
dad
definitely
on.
want to have your
first
dad
you
on.
got to understand, my dad is a Baptist pastor. He pastors his own church and have for years, right, Merril?
Yeah.
He doesn't hang out at bars. He was like, when are we going back? That means he really liked you.
It was a great morning.
His
I
dad.
had so much fun.
Yeah,
You talk about a guy who's got a lot of great stories.
Yeah.
I only heard about 5 or 6 of them that day, but
yeah,
he's got. We definitely got to get him on the podcast.
I got some else for you. Drop down, but I'll get it for you when we're
Hey,
done.
Merril, real quick.
Yeah.
I know Solly's true and true Bengal fan. Now that you live in Fort Thomas, Pittsburgh's far away. You wearing a Bengals jersey anymore, or shirts? No?
You know I used to be a Bengal, right?
All I see
played for-
online, man, in my research
Well-
is Pittsburgh and Chicago.
Well, remember when Marvin Lewis was here, right?
Yep.
Okay. So Marvin
I know
Lewis,
he coached
I
there.
knew Marvin Lewis when I was in high school. Marvin Lewis was
He's from Pittsburgh,
right, but he played at Idaho State.
That's right.
We're the Idaho State Bengals.
Yeah.
So when I got to Idaho State, he was a coach, and he was a GA. So GAs you tend to gravitate towards because they're in between playing and coaching. And so he was one of my best friends when I was a freshman. And then he came to Pittsburgh with Bill Cowher. So I knew. So Marvin and I used to always laugh when I go down to his office. Like, man, it's definitely an upgrade from Idaho State, but it's the exact same feeling. It's like the colors, the Bengals, our uniforms. Our uniforms are just like the Bengals.
They didn't realize when Marvin was hired here, he already had friends on the ground, right?
Oh, yeah.
He really did.
Yeah.
And we tried to get him to move to Anderson, just so you know. And he decided he was going to move to Indian Hill because that's where obviously his bosses live. So
That's where everybody goes.
Okay. But no, then he called me a few years later after he went to Joe Marinick's house.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
And he said,
yeah.
why didn't you tell me that this was so beautiful here?
There's
I
nice
said, "Don't
houses
give
in
me that."
Anderson Township. Come on.
I said, don't give me that. You could have had a place here. I said, but you wanted to go live next to your boss, so it's okay. But remember, he lived to regret it.
Offices right next
You
to
live
each
to regret
other.
it. Yeah.
Houses right next to each other. It makes
Yeah.
sense.
Well, that view over the river is killer, right? It's killer. yeah.
Absolutely.
So is Marinick's walk-in humidor.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely
That
beautiful.
humidor is amazing.
All right. Well, guys, I'll tell you what. It's been great, Merril. It's been great having you here. Solly, thanks for jumping in.
You made the whole deal, bro. I didn't think you were going to come. I didn't think you were going to be here.
I was late. I was on calls, but
I'm glad you got to
I had
come.
to
Well,
surprise
this is-
him. I didn't tell him I was going to be here.
I know.
so
I
he
didn't say.
Yeah,
he didn't know
this is
that.
a situation we tried to set up. We tried to get you both here at the same time, and your schedules are crazy, our schedules are crazy. But the fact that you got in here for a few minutes, Solly, we
Made
can't
my
thank
day,
you
brother.
enough.
I'll see you Wednesday.
Thanks for
Merril,
having
thank
me.
you, and Rob, take it away because
Gentlemen,
it's one
thank
more
you
and I'm out of
both
here.
for being here.
Our
I
pleasure.
Can we
appreciate
get
it.
one more round of applause for
Thank you.
Merril
Merril-
Hoge and Solomon Wilcott?
Solomon Wilcott. And we're going to ask the question. We're not going to ask our guest. Dan, do you manscape, buddy?